All right. Testing, making sure I'm coming through okay. You hear me okay, Seth? All right. Good to be here this afternoon with you. I'm glad that all of you made it. And man, this is getting better and better in terms of ease of transition. I noticed today I was putting in notes about here's the link to the UIW YouTube page. If you're the link at YouTube on UIW, and then I realized it did it all automatically. So that's thanks to Seth. All right, looks like just about everybody has crossed over. A couple of things quickly. Between Seth and Joshua Chisholm, they helped us to push this to where we can fit more this week than we have over the last couple of weeks. Of course, all of you, in a way, have helped to do that because all of you support what we're doing here at Ross K. Nichols TV and United Israel. So thank you to everyone because this is sort of we see it as a team effort. As people jump on board and help us, we're able to reach more people. So previously, over the last couple of weeks, like I said, our limit was 50 in these discussion rooms, and now we can get up to 150. So listen to me, go out into the highways and byways and knock on doors. Well, it may not be safe anymore. I used to do that as a kid. That was another religion too. But anyway, invite people to join us because I think that people will probably enjoy these discussions, these studies, especially since afterwards we get your input. Before I open up the floor, and I intend to do that, I wanted to say that we are presently, the Tylers, the Buntons, the Dr. Tabor, the officers of United Israel World Union are planning now the conference, the United Israel World Union Conference, and that will be the weekend of April 19, 20, and 21, April 19th through the 21st in St. Francisville, Louisiana. I'm hoping that all of you can join us here in St. Francisville. Now, let me tell you, this is a small town, and so we do have a couple of hotels. We have a lot of bed and breakfast, and then there are also a couple of other small towns close by, Jackson, New Roads, Zachary. I'm going to put out a note, but you can start looking for a room now anytime. You know, you can find the rooms in St. Francisville or New Roads are the two that I would recommend as your first option. Zachary's about 20 minutes away. But we hope that you're here. We have yet to post the program, who's going to be the speakers and so forth, but I assure you that it's going to be exciting, and it's always good to get together with those of us who are like-minded. And I think that's what we have here. So I see people are already posting. Carolyn just posted Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So maybe I don't have to be a producer and produce a news show. I don't think I've ever seen that, even though it's been recommended to me on numerous occasions. But should we choose to do that, that would be fun. Honestly, I don't have time right now. Seth and I are working on our own production. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe in the future. We've got Clody. We have other people who are skilled in the acting world. So who knows what may come of that? Good Charles asked the question about the conference. Any cost beyond bed and food? The answer to that is absolutely not. We have no charge for the conference. In fact, all you would have to do is cover your room and board wherever you make those arrangements. And because St. Francisville is a small town, I called the one local hotel, it's a Best Western, and they offered to give me the 10 or so rooms that they said they had available on the books. but I often find that you get better rates if you call. Some of you have military discounts or AUSA or who knows what. I would suggest you call and see what you can get, because the cost they gave me wasn't any better than what I think you could get. And yeah, you can. Dave Tyler says you can tell them you're old. Sometimes they just give you a discount because you're old. I forget, what is that? What is that? I know it because I get 1,000 things from them a week ever since I hit 50. Anyway, just tell them you're old and what kind of discounts do they give old people, and they'll help you out. Some of you aren't old, though, so you're going to have to come up with something creative. AARP, that's right, Charles, that's what it is. So try that. Jim, I see you nailed it, too. You both get bonus points. Okay, so I was really excited as we worked through this Torah portion again. And the reason is because, every year when we go through these parsha, you see different things. And it's some of the stuff that I saw might have piqued your interest, but there are things that some of you may have seen as well. So what I'm really curious to hear is your comments, your questions. Mainly, what are some of the insights that you saw as we worked through Torah portion VaYeshev? VaYeshev. We just entered into the Joseph cycle, and I am curious to see if any of you have any insights on that. And I'll take a sip of coffee while you try to all jump on the stage at once. If you don't have any immediate comments, I'll jump back in. But I'm curious, anybody have any insights on the Torah portion? Garments, Charles says. So while we wait for someone to jump on the stage with me, I will talk about that. Yeah, garments are very insightful piece of this. Okay, I got Dave Tyler. He might have a whole room full of people with him. Either way, welcome, Dave. Welcome to the show.
Hey, all right. Shabbat shalom to everyone. I think it's great to reread things. I think I first read this story in the Bible in probably 1973 or 1974, and so the garments were a pretty interesting insight, Ross. But also, it reminds me of one thing about the Hebrew Bible, because I read a lot of religious literature around the world where everyone's perfect and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Well, the Hebrew Bible shows all the warts, and it has it rings authenticity. And when you were going through this, where Daddy's out, having sex with his daughter-in-law and doesn't even know it, I don't kind of. I mean, that's real. That has to be real. I mean, and it's just the stupid mistakes people make. Like, I'm going to give you all my signet and all my, ID and to a prostitute.
Yeah.
I find that just, like, men get crazy sometimes. And I think it smacks of realism. And that's what I like, is that, there's nothing wrong with, telling the story the way it is instead of sugarcoating it, A lot
Well,
of
to
my
your
friends.
point, I'm sorry, Dave,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, to your point, yeah, I agree. I think that is exactly these stories. When you read them, I saw that Sylvia posted in the comments today that this is sort of an adult-only class. It's a PG-13. The
Yeah.
biblical stories do have these crazy narratives, and who would paint their progenitors as the Bible paints Judah in this picture, and anyway, I agree with you. I think it's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah, and then and again, I don't want to go off on this tangent, but in my life, coming out of Christianity, um, it was what I did in my life. Um, it it didn't seem very Christian,
Yeah,
but it seems very Hebraic, because I'm involved
sure,
in military operations and
right.
all that kind of stuff. So and the other thing is, I want to just give a shout out to my own team at my company. We just crossed $200,000 worth of goods to the IDF, and so it's been a good week. People are
Wow.
flying them over on LL, so people get on a plane with like six bags, and LL's waiving the bag fee, and they're flying over. They land. Customs comes and grabs it, and they get right back on the plane and fly home. And I am so happy with this team that we've got, Christians and Jews, and just thought just let everyone know that we're pushing what we're doing. Anyways, I don't want to go on. I just want to say, great. This is a great revisit of this subject, and I think it's great if we did it. My only other one I wanted to do is kind of the acting out of the Job story and kind of
Mm.
concentrating it. But that's another brilliant story which I just posted in the what's that called, the bulletin channel,
Yeah.
my paper on, because from a
That's excellent.
philosophical point of view, yeah, God does not have to explain himself to us. He
Yeah.
doesn't say, I'm sorry, Job. He said, were you there when I
Yeah.
made the earth, when I created the foundations of this universe? And then, no,
Yeah.
we weren't, God. So then
Yeah.
let it
Hmm.
go.
Yeah.
Anyways, hey, I'll talk to y'all later, and Shabbat Shalom.
Hey, hang tight. You might have to jump back on and help me later, Dave. Good hearing from you, and I did see that. Okay, so Karen, I see your hand. I'm going to bring you on stage. Welcome to the discussion.
Hey, so you people were talking about movies and Joseph and stuff in the chat while you were talking about this, and I've always thought that towards the end, the part where Tamar is standing before Judah and he's accusing her, that would be a great movie scene.
Say
Because
which
my
part?
idea,
Say.
the part where he's asking her, who did this?
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because he's already sent his servant to go with the kid to go get his stuff back, but the servant came back without it, and I'm sure servants talk, and so
Yeah.
everybody's probably snickering and laughing because look, everybody knows what Judah did, and his brothers are probably taunting him like, "Where'd your ring, bro?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
then Tamara's standing before him, and I can just imagine she's got a robe on, and she's got his ring on, and
And
his
look,
cord
look,
wrapped around her
Karen,
wrist, and his staff in her.
she's doing like this, like all over,
Well, I
like
think
I
she's
don't.
got it hidden in her robe. I say she has it hidden in her robe, and when he asks her, who did this, and what's the phrase you said in Hebrew?
Yeah,
Whose is this?
do you recognize these? We're going to look at that. Keep going. I
Yeah.
want to.
So I say she throws her robe open, and she's got his staff in her hand and his ring on her finger, and she said, "Whose are these?" And
Right.
everybody knows. So I mean, he
Everybody
has to
knows.
be a culprit because everybody knows what he done.
When you said
Anyway,
everybody knows, in my head I was thinking of Leonard Cohen's song. Everybody knows.
right,
Yeah, that's right.
right.
Look, so this phrase, I agree with you. This would be a gripping visualization as you look at this. But here's the phrase that I talked about. If you look at chapter 37, verse 32, 37:32, they had the long robe with sleeves taken to their father, and they said, "This we found. See now whether it is your son's robe or not." He recognized it, and this particular phrase. Let's see. Yeah, when they say, "Do you recognize it?" in the Hebrew, the English is a little bit different here, but it's the same phrase as we see in 38:25 where it says, let's see. Yeah, take note, please. Whose are these? So it's the same Hebrew. So it's like, the word is recognized. Do you recognize these? Oh, do you
Hmm.
recognize this coat? Yeah, oh my God, it's Joseph's. Same thing with the rings. So it's like these two
And
stories. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and the person asking it, they already know the answer in both
Mm,
cases,
that's a good
like a
point.
catchphrase almost.
That's right. That's a good point. Yeah, it's so much you can do with the visual element. And by the way, all of this talk about doing a play, doing a movie, these are the kind of discussions that Seth and I are having because I can try to make you see something, or you can try to make me see something with words only. And sometimes we're successful. But if you can just use the visual aids, the video or something visual to help us, that's what we're brainstorming now as we work through these northern prophets and their stories. We're brainstorming nonstop. In fact, I just ordered from Amazon. By the way, this is the kind of stuff that your donations help with, everybody. We bought those big tablets, where you can brainstorm and you write on them. It's little stuff like that. I can't afford to go buy that, but it allows us. We can take these pads and we don't yet, but this week we're going to have these sheets all over this building helping us brainstorm. But again, to your point, Karen, how do you make someone see one of these points, a scene in the play almost? Very powerful.
And one more thing is, as far as dreams go, I'm with you all today because of a dream. I don't know if I ever
Really?
told you that.
No.
Yep.
Tell me, can you tell? Is it something you can
Yep.
share?
Um,
If not,
maybe.
don't worry about it, but
It's
that's
very
okay.
personal. No,
Yeah,
I'll share because I think, in the text, dreams are very powerful. In fact, I think they're a little more powerful than we give them credit for.
I do too.
And, it's growing up, I was always a dreamer, but I didn't really give any context to it. And I might tell my parents, I had this weird dream.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then, well, let's see. I remember the day. I don't usually remember a date that I had a dream, but it was April 20th, 2014. And uh, my sister and I had made some choices in her life. So, I think you got to, in a way, I said before, I think last week to Betty, that you have to put yourself in a position to hear.
Yeah.
And um, she had read a book called The Great Physician's Prescription for Health and Wellness by a man named Jordan Rubin. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've ever heard of it.
I have.
And she called me and said, I think we need to do this. And because I don't know if you know, my mom had died of breast cancer a few years earlier, and we were like scrambling, like, how do we not get cancer? What do we do?
Right.
And we had been reading all kinds of things and listening to all kinds of doctors. And she read this book and she was like, I think we need to try this. I'm like, okay. So she said, in the beginning, he does this thing called a Daniel fast, and it's like a detox and to get started on. And she brought me the book. She only lived like 5 miles away from me at the time.
Yeah.
Brought me the book, and she said, let's make our food together and let's do this detox and let's read the book. And I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll go along with it. And so I read it, and and it's all about eating kosher basically and eating organic and all this other stuff. And then the detox, of course, was horrible.
Hmm.
I've never been on heroin or drugs or anything, but I felt like I was coming off of it.
Wow.
And I think that just like cleared my mind. And then I remember we ended the fast on Easter because we were still in the church and all that. And, instead of having Easter ham, we had Easter free range organic turkey.
Right. Right.
And both of us decided at that point, we're like, we can't go back. This is it. We need to do this for the rest of our lives, for our own health and for our family's health. And, we'd never done anything like that. And we were getting a little bit of flack from our friends. They're like, oh, that's the law. You're being
You're getting
legalistic about
under
it. I'm
the
like,
law.
no, we don't want cancer.
Yeah.
We want to, God knows what he's talking about. So we're going to do what he says in his Bible for health reasons, not for legal reasons. It's not going to get us to heaven. We don't care. This
Right.
is something completely different. And 2 weeks later, I had what I call my Samuel experience, I guess you could say it. And yeah, I was like, he didn't tell me what I was supposed to do, but it was more like um, there's something you're not doing right. There's something else that you need to do. and if you don't do it, you're gonna never be who you are,
Hmm.
kind of thing. And part of the dream has already come true, and not the not good part.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you it was like um smells. I can still. It was like I was there.
Wow.
Really weird. Um, there were smells. I could feel the air. There were like I was using all my senses in this dream,
Hmm.
and it was yeah, pretty. I don't think I've had dreams since then that were important and things like that, but nothing like that one. Maybe twice in my life have I had something like that one.
Yeah.
And um yeah, so I mean, I don't know if you want me to tell the whole dream because it's kind of emotional,
Well,
but um
yeah,
it
I
it made me
appreciate.
wake up and realize that what I believed wasn't the whole truth.
Yeah. And you were
And I did
raised
have the
back.
resource, I did have the key.
Weren't you raised in the church? Wasn't your father, or isn't your
Oh
father, a
yeah.
pastor?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, my dad's a pastor. Is a
That's
pastor.
what, yeah, that's what I thought I remembered. Yeah. Well, that makes it even tougher. But what's so amazing in just what you did share is that, you're right. Biblically, there's so much more to dreams than people give credit for. I think Jonah and I talked about this the other night, maybe on something we were doing for a recording, but it's, you think about where God talks to Solomon and he says, what do you want me to give to you? And Solomon says, just give me wisdom to lead this people. And there's this conversation, and God says, oh, since you've asked for such a good thing and you didn't ask for riches and you didn't, I'm going to give you everything. And then if you read that closely, you realize it's all a dream. Same thing with Jacob.
Yeah.
When God tells Jacob, I'm going to go with you out of this land and I'm going to bring you back and you're going to have children. They're going to be, he gives him the whole story of the future of Israel, and it's a dream. So I think,
Yeah.
a lot of times, what for me, I've often thought, wow, I wish that God spoke like he did in the ancient times, like in the Bible. But when you read the Bible, a lot of times it's dreams. So who's to say? I know that you're describing a situation where a dream changed the course of your life. Who
It
could
did.
argue? No one can argue that. Like, who's going to tell you, Karen? I don't believe that. Who cares? you know,
Mhm.
it
And I honestly
changes
I
people.
paid a little more attention to it
Yeah,
because, at first it's just a dream. And I know it's powerful. And I know I need to make some changes, but there was something in the dream that I didn't want to be true. As a
right.
Christian, like I'm going to pray against that. I'm going to speak against that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what he was showing me is, this is going to happen to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can just be prepared.
Wow.
And I wasn't prepared because
Yeah,
I didn't want it to be true.
yeah,
And now looking back, I'm like, man, I should have taken that literally and been a little bit more prepared for what was to come because I knew it was coming because he told me,
yeah.
and it's just, anywho, now I'm a little bit like, okay, this is going to happen. You need to get it together and be a little more prepared for that.
Well, let me tell you this. I don't know all the details, and that's something very personal between you and God, but I can tell you this. If part of the result was that you're now helping us and you're with us, I'm very, very grateful, and I'm glad you're with us. So,
Me
and
too.
I know your sister too. So I think it's like the whole family kind of thing. Well, not the whole
Yeah,
family,
and
but
the
some of you.
dream not only changed my life, it changed hers too. Like, because both of
Outstanding.
us were like, okay, we're not on the right path. We
Well,
need to figure this out. And it took years for us to figure it out.
I'm still figuring, but I would say this: we are in the dream cycle, in the annual cycle of
Right.
Torah reading. So if you're a dreamer, maybe get ready. I don't remember very many of my dreams in my entire life. That's not me. My mom, on the other hand, is just the opposite. Maybe some of my kids, but I do have a lot of reverence and respect for those who do have dreams. So But anyway, thanks for sharing that, Karen. I appreciate that
Maybe
very
someday I'll
much.
share the whole dream, but probably not today.
All right, that's good. Good idea. All right, hey, thanks, Karen. I'm going to bring
Thanks.
Nikita. Nikita, welcome, my friend. How are you today?
Shabbat shalom. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. Tell us something
I
good,
loved the
Nikita.
class today.
Did you
I
did you have
loved the class today. Yes, I did. It was on fire. I really appreciate you for that. Thank you,
well,
Lord, for giving you and Seth, if he helped you the insight to pull that out. You should have heard me just praising in this house.
hey, that's what we need.
I'll
We
be
need
brief.
we no, but I was going to say we need that. Like in my old, I don't have bad feelings toward my religious upbringing. It's what trained me to fall in love with the biblical text and to fall in love with God. Sometimes you need to hear some of that amen, not for your ego, but just because we know that we have friends around us that are in concert with us. So I'm happy, and thank you for sharing that. Every time I open the scripture, I always say in Hebrew, "Gal einai va'avita niflaot mitorateka." Open my eyes, and I will look for wonderful things from your Torah. So all right, Nikita, I'm gonna be quiet and listen to some of your insights. How are you? Go ahead.
Once I get a hold of my jaw from, picking it up off the floor, I'm like, does he have a camera in my house? Because that's one of my favorite verses that you just quoted. And what I was going to say was, it was 2 points I wanted to make, and I get out of your way. Number one was the past is not your future. So everything that Joseph had went through was preparing him for his future. When I was in my old faith, they would give us these spiritual inventories, fill out your spiritual gift inventories type of thing.
Yep.
And even when they brought it up, and even though I filled it out, because that's the faith I was in, I was like, but God is preparing you for something new daily.
Yep.
It's not that, if you gave this to Moses, all he ever would have been was a shepherd.
That's
If
right.
you gave this to any biblical figure, nothing in their past determined what their future was going to be. It helped guide them, it helped mold them for it, but it didn't determine it. That's God's privilege.
Amen.
That was the first thing. And the second thing was, for me personally, everything that I have not found anything yet in the biblical narrative that does not take me back to the garden. Everything goes there. Everything originates from there. And
Yep.
in reference to this, and I'm thinking of 1 Samuel 16:7, where it says, God looks on the heart.
Yep.
So when you brought out the garments and how they were used as deception, even in the nakedness of man and his wife Chava, even in their nakedness, he still saw what was going to happen. He saw their hearts.
Yeah.
So we're sometimes mostly deceived by what we see or what we perceive to be true, like the clothing, people and their titles. And but if you're looking at that, this person is supposed to be regal or this person is supposed to be kingly, it doesn't matter. Their heart will come out in their actions.
Amen.
And you know how you have famous ministers who fall from grace for whatever reason. That didn't happen in a box. It was a part of their nature. Like when King David did the thing with Bathsheba,
Yeah.
he had warnings. God had warned him in the servant saying, oh, that's Uriah's house. That's Uriah's house. And it would have triggered him like, yes, this is something I should not do. But in the arrogance of being so blessed, he's like, well, God will let me have this one. You'll let me slide with this. And that's why it's so important to meditate on the word day and night. So I wanted to bring that up about the clothing with Adam and Eve in the garden, the fig leaves, and it's all the way through. If I could lose the rest of the Tanakh, the Torah and the Tanakh, I'd have to keep the 6 chapters because I do believe the first 6 chapters of Genesis, because I do believe that would get me to God. That
I hear
would
you.
get me to the footsteps of the Most High.
That is both of those points Nikita will preach, and you just touched the surface. I know I can sense that if given the right circumstance, you would preach those points. And let me tell you about that I agree with you on that garden. The thing about the garden, that's where man was created to be, brought into there and placed in that rest and being in that communion. So in a way, the rest of time, all of history since they get kicked out, is paradise lost, as the great author said. It's how do we get back into that presence? And I think it's what all religions try to do. It's what all of us try to do in our quest is, how do I draw near unto God? And I think that's those that are sincere. So you're right. We can dress up and go by all the fancy titles we want, and none of that matters. What really matters is what's on the inside. You said it very eloquently. That is one of my favorite verses. We ought to teach it to our children. You don't have to teach religion in schools, but you ought to teach basics. Look past all the outside. What does this person mean to me on the inside? And that's where we need to be focused. So as much as we can. Of course, we can't see like God can, so we're forced sometimes getting deceived by the sight of our eyes. And what we really need to do is listen for that quiet, that soft voice, like Karen mentioned she heard. So, all right, Nikita.
Another point I'd like to make.
Yep.
Just one small point.
Yep.
What always comes to mind with this verse and situations surrounding how things are perceived is the movie from 1939 or 41, but it's called The Picture of Dorian Gray, The Portrait of Dorian Gray, based on the novel by Oscar Wilde.
Okay.
That movie really, really hit home. Please don't watch the newer versions; they're trash. This one has George Sanders and Donna Reed in them, but it's like no matter. And sometimes it's hard to stop yourself because you want some things to actually be true.
Yeah.
When people have these particular titles, and that's why I like listening to lay people as opposed to scholars, because a lot of scholars tend to regurgitate what they've learned and have not investigated whether or not it was true, because their source, their credibility of authority, again, they give credit more so to, well, he paid and went to school to learn this. I'm like, that doesn't mean he's not wrong.
Yeah. Let me comment on that.
Seminaries are full of people.
Oh yeah, I found in my library, one of the things that when I'm preparing for a series or a teaching or a class or anything, I pray, but I also do a lot of research and study. And so I wanted to see, what do the top scholars in the world say about the Northern prophets? And I was looking in particular for to see if other people had noticed some of the things that we're talking about here when we brainstorm. And so I told Seth the other day, I started reading and I said, oh man, this is perfect. This chapter in this top scholar's book is about Northern prophecy. And I read through that, and that was the driest thing. And finally, I pushed all those books out of the way, and I said, look at here. Here's all we need right here. We're gonna go through, and I'm gonna read fresh. I'm gonna ask God to open my eyes, and I'm gonna pay attention, and I'm gonna read fresh the relevant chapters that deal with from the split of the kingdom until the end of that northern kingdom, and I want to read firsthand again all of those stories about these prophets. And when I did that, when I pushed aside what other people saw, and I'm not I mean, they could be brilliant, but I'm telling you, there was nothing there really. The source that we go to is straight to the source. Don't go through anything else.
The undue influence. That's what I call it. I'm like, it's undue influence.
That's
right. And
right.
that's how we probably all ended here. We got fed up with what we heard in whatever seat of worship we were in before. And like, strip me down, Lord. Just if it doesn't come from you, I'm not going to abide by it or believe it. That's that right. Torah obedient thing. So,
Yep.
Well, thank you for giving me a little time, and I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you very much. As we say, fed up. A lot of people are fed up. One quick thing, and I see you, Kim. I'm about to bring you on, my brother. But one thing I wanted to say was, it's funny. It's interesting to me that when in my past, you leave one church, you go to another, and someone might ask you, say, "Well, Ross, why did you leave that group, or why did you leave that church?" And what a lot of times people will say when you ask them that question is interesting. They say, I just wasn't getting fed there. I didn't. Isn't that funny? Because I think, and by the way, this is one of my northern prophets. Amos talks about this famine. It's not a famine of food and water, but a famine of hearing the words of God. And that's what I pray will bring people to this fellowship, to this small group. None of us individually may be the smartest, the brightest, the whatever, but I think all of us collectively have arrived to this place. We don't have to agree on everything, but we are, as you said, fed up with this watered down version, and we just want to know, what does it say, what does it mean, without all the frill, without all the added commentary. So, hey, thanks for coming on and sharing with us, Nikita. I appreciate it very much. And Kim.
Thank you.
All right, Kim, I am going to invite you to the stage, brother. Welcome. Good to see you. What can you tell me today? I think I invited you on the stage. Sometimes it takes just a minute, but I'm looking forward to hearing from you. All right, Kim, I'm not sure what happened, but I'll come back to you, I promise. I'm going to bring Miriam up. Miriam. Oh, there we go. Miriam, if you can wait 1 second, I've got Kim. Kim, can I hear you? Let's see. You may have to.
Can you?
I can hear you. Good to see you, brother. Good to hear you.
All right. It's good to be here. Shabbat Shalom to
Shabbat
you and
shalom.
everyone.
Yep.
I just wanted to share a dream that I had in my search for the truth.
Okay.
I was in bouncing around from church to church with my kid's wife, my first wife. I mean, my kid's mother, my first wife.
Yep.
And I had a dream that I'm got a rattlesnake ready to strike me, and I'm crawling on the ground and being perfectly still, not wanting to move. And I see behind the snake my wife standing there, and behind her in the background, I see the wall of Jerusalem. And I'm paralyzed. I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, poof, I believe God pulled me out from behind that snake because I could not move. If I moved, I would have been struck and died. But he pulled me away.
Yeah.
And of course, not at the time, I had no idea what that meant. But to make a long story short, my first wife stood between me and my pursuit of the truth of Abraham, basically, the Jewish faith,
Yeah.
the Abrahamic faith. And so obviously we got divorced, and she went back into one of the first churches that she went to. In other words, she went backwards and I went forward, I believe. And I'm not saying I'm against Christianity, and please do not even think that, because
I get you.
as
I get you.
as one rabbi told me, you don't want to spit in the well that you drink.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I get it. I know what you're saying, and that I appreciate you sharing that personal dream with us as well. That's one thing that would get my attention. I am not a fan of snakes. I can tell you, I am not at all a fan of snakes. So that would get my attention, I guarantee you. And you're here.
Yes, sir. I'm not just
and you're here.
And then along, certain five, it was That was in the late 80s, and I eventually converted in 95. So it took something like that for God to give me, because I am very critical about changing without knowing. I mean, I'm gullible, so I don't want to jump into something too quick. It takes a long time for me to be convinced. And I finally converted in 95, which I didn't have to because my grandmother was Jewish. But I did anyways.
Good deal.
So
Well, and you've been
that's just my story.
no, I appreciate you sharing. And you've been with United Israel for a while now. I mean, I don't know when you first came in contact with us, but I know you've been with us for quite a while now.
I have a mutual friend of Tabor's, Diane Nash, that invited me to go over to a Shabbat service at his house, and Betty was there. Their mother was there, and that was in, I think, 1990.
Wow, very good.
So yeah, I've known y'all for a long time.
Hey, we appreciate you.
And I think in April, I am finally financially going to be able. I believe I'm going to make plans to be there for the conference.
Oh man, that's going to be great. I hope you can make it. I pray that you can make it, and I know that all those that you just named will be happy to see you if you can make it. So, who knows? I'll tell you what.
To see y'all again personally.
Yeah,
I've never shook your hand, and I can't wait.
Well, come on down, and I'll make you a cup of. You drink coffee?
Yes, sir.
I'll make you a cup of the best coffee you ever had, and I'll even hug your neck if you'll let me.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to it.
All right. Hey, look forward to it, and I'll post those links. I'll be sending out the stuff about the conference pretty soon. So I'm gonna let you off the stage, and now it's Miriam's.
Real quick. If you could also on that link show the closest hotels to the meeting.
Yeah, I can. And you can remember this. It's not going to be hard because we don't have many. The Best Western. But I will. I'll put that in there. All right. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, buddy.
Good to hear from you.
Good.
Hey, Miriam. How are you, my friend? Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom to all. Great class today. Just love thing that has been dreams that I have a question about the class. In Genesis 38, we were very different.
You're breaking up on my end, Miriam. Just a little bit. Seth said, see if you can get a little closer, Miriam. It's cutting out a little bit. Just get a little closer to your computer. Let's try that.
Okay.
Or just closer to your microphone. Try it now.
Hello?
All right, let me see if that's a little bit better. Try it again. Did you say we're going to Genesis 38?
Yes. Can you hear?
It's still cutting out a little bit. I tell you what we'll do, Miriam. We're gonna, if you don't mind, if you can type your note, your question, because I can't quite understand you, and I want to make sure that I do my best to answer it. So, if you do that, we might try you again in a few minutes.
I apologize.
Wait, hold on. Now I got you there.
Oh, you got me?
There it is. It's a miracle. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Shabbat Shalom. Okay, to all. Love the class. Love everything that was said today. Love them, but that's not what I'm asking the question. In Genesis 38, it talks about Tamar and her situation. and brother-in-law, they privilege, whatever responsibility, and eventually how she did get pregnant. We to Deuteronomy 25, right?
Let me make sure I follow you so
5,
far.
6.
The you're talking about the pregnancy of Tamar in Genesis 38 and how that is tied to the law in Deuteronomy 5:5. Am I right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and
Okay.
you said or the same or different. The words
Okay.
are different stated.
Okay, so let me just make a jump on this because it's still hard to follow, but let me tell you what I do think. I do think that what we have in Deuteronomy 25 is a recording of an ancient law among Semitic people, and we do find evidence of this even outside the Bible. So what's going on in Genesis 38 is that Tamar has married into this family, and through unfortunate situations, the oldest son who takes her as his woman dies. And so what we know from Deuteronomy 25, it's called a levirate marriage, Levirate, a levirate marriage. The next one in line takes that woman to raise up children to the family, because see, bearing children in the ancient world, to me, it's still important. In the ancient world, it had a very, very big significance. So this woman, Tamar, she turns her affection, her love, she gives herself to a family, and the return of that gift of this woman to this family is that they will give her children, and she'll be able to raise the children up. And since heir dies, she ends up taking the next boy, and that's the setting of the story. And again, the main point that I want to bring up that I think is important is that ultimately, I do think that based on First Chronicles chapter 4, verse 21, that the youngest boy of Judah, maybe he's shamed into giving his youngest son finally, but because of First Chronicles 4:21, we see that the youngest must have also been given in marriage to Tamar, and then she has she raises up seed for the youngest, for the oldest, I meant. But she also, remember, she also gets pregnant by Judah. So anyway, interesting story. I hope that answered it. It was what I could make of what you were saying. It was a little bit broken up. Did that kind of halfway covered what you were asking?
You stated. Hello. Can you hear me?
I could hear you now. Yeah.
It wasn't similar to the root situation, and that's what intrigued me.
Okay. All right. And that is the final point, because I did hear you say Ruth. So what we'll do is I'll touch on that. We have a very similar story in Ruth. We have the person Boaz, who is wanting to take Ruth, has to follow this procedure. So he has to make sure that the one who is the kinsman redeemer in this case, I think is the way the English typically translates it. The kinsman redeemer, he has to say, look, if I've got Ruth the Moabitess, and if anyone is eligible, they should step forward, and that's how. But it's tied to this same idea in Deuteronomy 25. Throughout the Pentateuch, we do have traces, although they're not always put together. We do have traces of how relationships worked, even though the word marriage, it's not, I mean, there are words that kind of mean the same thing, but they certainly didn't think of it the way we did. But you get things like this in Deuteronomy 25. Even in Deuteronomy 24, we have some rules that also deal with if you need to put away a woman, these are the rules and so forth. So, but you're right to point that out, and I can't remember if I touched on it in the class or not. But Ruth is also the story of Ruth is also connected to that Deuteronomy 25. So good observations, Miriam. And I can't hear you well enough to pick it up better, so I apologize if I didn't answer it correctly. But have a Shabbat Shalom, my friend. Have a wonderful day, my sister. And looks like maybe Betty is next. Betty, how are you, my friend? Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, welcome. I think I've invited you. There you are.
Yes, thanks,
Hey,
Ross.
hey, Betty.
First of all, yeah, this is, as most of you who've known me anytime know, these are some of my very favorite stories. But before I get into that, I wanted to thank Karen for sharing. That was amazing. I did write something in the chat, but I just wanted to make sure that you saw that you're much appreciated. We're so glad you're here with us.
Absolutely.
And also, Kim Clemenson has been a very, very long time and special friend of mine. Anyway,
Yeah.
so thanks, Kim. Okay, now the third thing is I did post a link to an article that is on our UW website. It's called let's see, Ani Yosef, Joseph
Yep.
Wept. There are two parts. I just posted part one, but it has to do with this whole cycle of Vayishlach through VaYeshev, and the next one, Miketz. Anyway, it just I can't explain what it does to me when I read it every year. It's just so moving. I think you had mentioned that, Ross, how moving it is, and how can anyone read it and not be affected? If you love God, and know that He is behind the scenes in all things, and even in our lives.
Yeah.
The fourth thing, and this is all, I'll be brief, but I had a very personal dream, and I will only relate a part of it. I don't want to be long-winded. It was during this same cycle, and the dream was in 1993, and it was shortly after Roger and I converted. How things can either, when you go through difficult times, they can either make you better,
Mm-hmm.
or you can just say, I give up, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And stream and the circumstances surrounding it, made me even stronger. The dream had to do with my little grandson, Joshua, even though Kim, her little son, who was 3.5, and he was in the hospital in ICU for 3 weeks, in a coma. I had a dream or a vision. I don't really know which, but I had come home for 2 days to be with, to teach my class, and I just couldn't stand it anymore, so I had to go back. But while I was at home, I was lying on our couch, and all of a sudden, I just saw little Joshua, who the doctors had said will probably lose both his legs if he lived, because they were having to give him drugs, which was taking all of the blood to his limbs, putting it into his brain.
Yeah.
So that he could, you know. Anyway, the dream was with Joshua, and he was barefoot, had both legs, was running down this path, kind of beside towards me, but I could see him fully, and his eyes were shining, his hair was back, he had his that big, beautiful smile that he has, and running towards me, just happy and carefree, like the child that he was. And I woke up and I thought, oh, Baruch Hashem, Joshua is going to come out of this. It was during Hanukkah.
Yeah.
And the nurse had put, taken a coloring page and colored in a candle for each day and put it on the wall next to his bed, even though he wasn't aware of anything, we were. So I called my friend Betty Bennett, who is now passed on as well. Bless her, blessed be her memory. And I told her, I started to tell her my dream. I had a dream about Joshua, and she said, I did too. She told me her dream, and it was exactly like mine.
Huh.
And I said, he's going to make it. He's going to make it. And she said, Betty, sweetheart, that dream was in his next life. He's not going to live through this.
Yeah.
And I was devastated. But sure enough, he didn't.
Yeah.
But I know that all of my friends, they cared and everything, but so many of them, and then I'm house flooded 8 months later. And so I know everybody was thinking, oh, we'll see what you did. You converted, you left Christianity, and look what's happening to you. But it was
God, I
like it just
hope they didn't think that. My
did.
goodness.
No,
Yeah.
it made me stronger. It
Yeah.
just made me stronger. And so every night, every Sabbath when I light the candles or there's a special holiday or whatever, I think of him and I'm blessed. I'm blessed by his life and his death because I
Yeah.
know he's with the one who created him. So I know
Beautiful.
that was kind of personal, and I got through it without crying. So thank you, Jehovah.
Hey, beautiful story. And just because we've been friends so long, I know the pain and the anguish of that story. But I tell you, one of the beautiful things about the Hebrew Bible, Dave mentioned when he came on earlier about the realism, the things in the text that make you say, wow, this has got to be real. There is, as the Bible says, God places eternity in the souls of the people, basically. Almost everyone has some view in their view of what is to come, that this is not it. Now, people might call it immortality of the soul. They may call it resurrection of the dead. They may call it reincarnation, the transmigration of souls. There are all these ideas that basically say, I'm going to live my life. This is my take. I'm going to live my life like this is the one go I get. But I'm also going to live my life like if I do it right, I get to come back, some way, somehow, some form. And the beautiful thing that I see in the scriptures, the Hebrew Bible doesn't give us a lot of information about that. I know you know about this, Betty. You've written on it, but the idea is that, whenever I bring up that Jacob says, Joseph, your dream, do you really expect me and your mom and your brothers to come bow down before you? And people, when I point out that his mother is already dead, people immediately, here's what they say. There can be no mistake in the scripture, Ross, so let me tell you, it's talking about another woman who's not his mother. That's the first thing that people want to do. It's what commentators want to do. But I don't think the ancients thought like that. And again, we have evidence elsewhere in Scripture, for instance, Jeremiah 31, where Rachel is pictured as weeping for her children or her son. But the idea that we get throughout the Scripture is that there is something else. Isaiah talks about how death will be swallowed up and so forth. But there does seem to be, Daniel is very clear. Of course, that's late, but Daniel 12 talks about some will be raised to everlasting life and so forth. And anyway, very interesting And I think that we, even when we suffer the loss of a loved one, David is a good example. I'm talking about David in the Bible, but David Tyler as well. I know he won't mind me saying this. King David said, I can't go to him, but I'll see him again, basically. You remember the story when he tragically loses his son. And sometimes I think when we lose someone like your precious Joshua or David and Patty's Daniel, or someone that we truly, how do you go on? It's this thing that God puts in us that says, I'm going to see them again. I remember doing my kids call my grandmother on my mom's side Granny, and when she passed away, that was one of the things that I said is we'll see Granny again. And I remember my grandson Asher waited patiently until all the people had filed by and took their last viewing of my grandmother, Granny. And I remember Asher said, "Hey, Saba," he said, "you know how you said that we get to see Granny again?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "When?" I mean, that's a good question, right? And because it was just from the lips of a little child. I don't remember how old he was, but he was little bitty. And but he was like, "Well, I'm ready for that day now." So we do, the Bible does present this as a hope that seeing someone that we love part from this life, it's not over. It's tragic, but we get to see him again, and I think that's reflected even in the Pentateuch. It's where Jacob is still imagining, he's still talking like Rachel's still there. Anyway,
Right.
I
Right.
rambled. I hope I didn't take away from your beautiful story, but that
No,
was
no,
just
no,
what
no.
hit me.
I appreciate that, and I saw that there was a question from Carolyn asking me, or where does it say to light candles on Shabbat?
Oh yeah, yeah,
And uh, Dave Tyler answered, I would also like to say that it doesn't. It's a tradition, and the traditional blessing is that God has commanded us, but He didn't.
yeah.
So when I light candles, I light them because He said to keep and to remember, to Shamor V'Zakor,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I say. It's just something to bring the light into the darkness and to mark that this is a special day.
Yep.
So that's why I light candles. And then Carolyn says, do I leave them? Do I leave? Well, I don't want to get into all of that. I think a lot of that is halakhic. I'd have personal conversation with anyone, but
Yeah, that's the
I
good
don't
thing.
think now's the
That's
time.
No, that's the good thing. Seth told me in between when we finished the class and when we went live this afternoon for this discussion, people had already begun to assemble in the community chat, which I wanted to remind you that is an option. And sometimes people will go there and you look on the left-hand side of the Discord channel and you'll see that is an option if you feel like talking. Or you can communicate one with the other. Look, this is I just wanted to say one more thing. Betty, first of all, thank you for your insights and your comments. I appreciate it. Did I cut you off, or
You're
was that your
welcome.
main point?
No, I was I was finished. Thank you so much.
Hey,
And
Shabbat
everyone for
Shalom.
your comments. Yes.
Shabbat Shalom. Again,
Shabbat shalom.
this week I will post the links in the Discord. I want people to, I'll probably do that this afternoon, put the links up so people can go ahead and make arrangements to join us. Now, we still have a few months. Again, it's April the 19th, 20th, and 21st here in St. Francisville. And, it's going to be a good problem to have. I think we're going to fill this place up in terms of how many can fit. Now, what we will try to do for people like Carolyn, who is in France, unless she wants to fly to St. Francisville, which we welcome her to do, we will try to stream I think we'll make a real good effort. I think, God willing, we'll stream everything that we do during the conference, the teachings, to our YouTube channel. So, but I'll be posting that. We hope that people will join us. If you're a member of the Yakat, if you're a member of the channel or part of the Patreon, you're welcome to join us on Wednesday night, where Jono and I will be talking about who knows what. I tell you, well, I started to tell you what I'm thinking about, but I don't know if I'm going to do it yet. I guess I could tell you I'm thinking about it. As part of the research for the Northern Kingdom, the Northern tribes and the Northern prophets, excuse me, I've been deep into the bad guys too. You have the prophets, but who are they fighting against? You have to do a little study on Jezebel. You have to study the false god Baal and so forth. So just as a sidebar, there are a lot of bad guys in the Bible, and particularly the gods of the Bible that are not the real God. And I think a lot of people don't know very much about that subject. So we are considering doing a series on, I guess you could say, the bad guys and the bad gods, just to make people aware of it. And, it's in the Bible. I know someone might say, wait a minute, isn't there something that says you can't even have the names of these gods on your lips? And I'm fully aware of that, but I promise you that when you take up a job and you say, I'm going to teach the Bible is full of this stuff. So I'm looking forward to maybe going into some of this. Yeah, Clody says the anti-heroes. So anyway, yeah, Kaylee says, I think Pesach is the following week, so timing, you attend may be easier to get off work to be there and the festival maybe together. We've thought of that, and typically we avoid the weekend that taxes are due in America, that around the 15th, and then we typically will try to avoid Passover because you talk about difficult. It's difficult for diet and for a whole host of other reasons, and some people don't want to travel on Pesach. They want to. So it sounds like a good idea. We thought about it, but we put it right there in the middle this year. It's between turning in your taxes, paying to Caesar what's due to Caesar, and then paying unto God the time that's due to God in Passover. So Pesach. Okay, we have just a couple of minutes, if anyone. Looks like we have Charles. Charles, let's see if we can bring you up on the stage with me, my friend. And I'm going to invite you to speak. How are you, brother?
I think I got in. I'll try to make this quick, but I had two things I wanted to say.
Okay.
First off, what I think I know about dreams is only what comes from what's happened with me. I could be wrong about the later interpretations, but it's really easy to miss an interpretation and misunderstand it. Not in this first dream, this life mission assignment dream or whatever. I I I had a dream and I saw my tombstone. There was a scripture reference on it, and so it just never played out. I wasn't able to move into that ever until like in the last year or so. But in my dream, I saw my tombstone. I saw my house. I saw the garden. I saw my wife. Everything was fine. So I got some comfort from that. And then I walked away singing the song. And I thought that was just a song between me and Father in heaven. And 20 years later, I heard that song on a radio, and I, I actually got upset because somebody had stole my dream. And
Wow.
and the song was "Wayfaring Stranger," which I had always called "I'm Going Home" song.
Hold on. Let me
And,
jump in. I know Tyler's about to type something too if he heard that. But go ahead. That wayfaring stranger. Yeah, go ahead.
so anyway, so that dream I kind of understood right off, but later on, after I was married, had children, I was working on the side of a lake, working on some electrical on a house, and I stopped for lunch, and I was looking across the lake at the trees on the other side, and all of a sudden, from what I saw, a big fire just came sweeping through, and it swept like a mile a second across the other side of the lake, burning up everything, and it was over just like that. And I always thought that meant I thought for years that meant that town was just going to get like nuked or something. And it wasn't until later, in fact, after I had moved back home to Alabama, that I understood that dream it wasn't a vision. I don't know what to call it, but anyway, that less than 2 second thing that happened was to teach me that I was standing there. I was standing there praying and praising, and I was kind of asking if maybe I could move out to the lakeside, because it was real pretty. And the message that I got understood later was that this is temporary. Don't don't focus so much on the temporary. And so that's what I got out of it. And I misinterpreted it for years and years and years. Um, and but anyway, some things right away, like my tombstone's got Amos 3:8 on it, and I never saw that happening because, well, my own fault. But
God
it's
does
actually coming.
God does the Lord, my Lord God does nothing unless he reveals his secrets unto his servants the prophets. Is that Amos 3:8?
The lion is roared. Who will not fear?
Oh,
Yahweh has
let's
spoken. Who can but prophesy?
okay. Let me see, what did I just quote? I must have quoted Amos 3:7 then. Let's see. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just thinking. Let's see. Amos 3, you said 3:8, and I think I quoted 3:7. Let's see. See there, you caught me. I made a mistake. Yep, it is. I quoted Amos 3:7. You quoted 3:8. Beautiful stuff, though, both of those, that
Uh,
whole chapter.
well, just don't get too wrapped up in what you think something means. Sometimes it takes, well, in the case of that nuclear fire that I thought I saw, it was just, hey, all of this is going to burn up. Just quit, quit, quit looking at so many temporary things.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and that's what I got out of it.
Excellent. No, I appreciate people sharing. Thanks, Charles. I appreciate that. I tell you, the the group here, it seems, and I know not everyone shared, but it seems that we've got quite a few in here that have had dreams that have really impacted them and impacted you, I should say. Like I said, I don't remember hardly any of my dreams, but because I grew up with my mom, and my mom is very spiritual, and she has a lot of dreams, and so I'm very familiar with this. And I've always had a reverence and respect for that because I think that there is something to that. For me, it's always been a little bit different. I think any insight that I get, obviously, I pray, I have that spiritual side, but it's, as I often tell people, I'm sort of a text guy. And that doesn't mean that people who have dreams are not, because the people, all of you, obviously are both. I'm just sort of a one-trick pony, as they might say. So, no, but thanks for sharing that, Charles. I appreciate that very much. Anyone else? Anyone else? By the way, I'll say Dave Tyler just posted, Charles, that he's working on a video from that's filmed in Israel, and it's set. I think I can say. I think he already said. Yeah, he's doing a video on that song in Israel, so it's very meaningful to Dave as well. So you two need to hook up after this, and if he's willing to share that, I think you might like it. All right. Anyone else? Thank you, Charles. Any parting words? I know we've got quite a few on. Look, if there's any way possible, if you can join us Wednesday night, looking forward to being with you Wednesday night. Those of you who are part of the Yakad, those of you who aren't, you'll see what we put out Wednesday. You'll see that on Thursday on the YouTube channel, and I'm looking very forward to that. And any parting words? All right.
Yes, sir.
Look,
Yes, sir. I want the bad boy part for the sailors on Jonah's boat after they already threw him over. I want to read that. Tell Seth he owes me an email so I can send him my audio audition file.
All right. He's listening, so I'm sure he can hook you up. All right. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. If you're doing Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. Bring light into the world, and I look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.